The search for answers in the crash of Korean Air Flight 801. On the scene in Guam, the last of lucky survivors are pulled from the wreckage. Tonight, you will hear from one of them as crash investigators lean toward pilot error. Also tonight, results of a nationwide survey on teens and drugs may surprise you. And revelations about Andrew Cunanan, what police found in the houseboat where the suspected spree killer died.
This is the CBS Evening News. With Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. U.S. government air crash investigators are focusing on pilot error tonight as a possible cause of the Korean Air Flight 801 disaster on Guam. As one crash survivor who works in aviation put it today, the landing was normal, but 3 miles early. At last report, 3 of about 30 survivors are U.S. citizens. Most, if not all, who survived were in the front of the Boeing 747. More than 200 people died. Our coverage of the search for answers, amazing survival stories, and daring rescues begins with CBS News correspondent Barry Peterson on the scene on Guam.
I see his hand. Yeah, I see it.
Amid a sea of death, the miracle of life. A daughter and her mother pulled from the wreckage of Korean Air Flight 801 6 hours after the crash. They were the last passengers found alive. Guam's governor, who hurried to the scene, became one of the rescuers.
The closer we got, the more hope I had because I heard screams that there were some survivors. I didn't realize that there could be any survivors on that crash.
In the midst of last night's carnage and confusion, he heard the cries of another little girl, found her, and pulled her to safety.
The one little girl that I found, she wanted me to go in and get her mom, who she saw burning, and I just couldn't get there because the flames were too much for anybody to get in there and try to grope through in the dark.
The governor later reunited 11-year-old Mika Matsuru with her father and uncle who flew in from Tokyo, a chance to comfort the girl who watched her mother die. By late afternoon, searchers knew there were no more miracles, no more survivors. From that point on, it was just a matter of trying to find and identify the dead. As more and more bodies were recovered, and with so little left of the jumbo jet, it was a miracle that anyone walked away.
The first class section of the airplane, the hump on a 747, is actually another 25 meters on the other side down in a ravine. The vast majority of the survivors were the people who were thrown from the aircraft and the people in the first class section.
Guam restaurant owner Hong Hyung-seung was in first class, seat 3B. One of the few survivors able to talk. He says there was no explosion, no warning, until the landing gear clipped a hillside and Flight 801 was doomed.
Landing gear, just hitting, go slippery there, go down there.
And then broke apart.
Yeah, broke apart, three pieces of there.
And what was the noise?
Yeah, something.
Crashing and...
Yeah, crashing there.
Right. He pulled the burning clothes off a flight attendant and saved her life. But he still hears the children he could not reach crying out, "Help me."
Help me there. But I cannot go that side there. Too much, smoke. And then burning to the airplane.
You could hear the babies crying for help or scared. Or, The mystery for investigators, why was a plane that should have been hundreds of feet above this hillside instead flying at treetop level?
As bad as the crash was, it could have been worse. If the plane had gone another 500 or 600 yards, it could well have plowed into one of the most densely populated parts of this island.
24 hours after the crash, another Korean Air flight landed in Guam, this one carrying not honeymooners or vacationers, but grieving relatives. People with prayers that somehow their mother or child is among the living. But for those with loved ones on Flight 801, few such prayers will be answered. NTSB investigators are here. They will spend today at the crash site. They've already recovered the black boxes, so the search for the why of this crash is now well underway. Dan? Barry, you spent much of the day at the crash scene. What stands out most? Two things. I think it's, for all the crashes I've covered, it's the most obvious what happened. You can see from the moment of first impact, when the landing gear hits and the plane shears down the side of the hill,
It's all written there in this red mud. And the other thing that these things always drive home is the complete serendipity of who is going to live and who is going to die. A man in one seat gets thrown out of the plane and walks away with a bruise or two, and the person sitting next to him never had a chance. It always scares me.
Thanks, Barry. In South Korea, more tears and grief as relatives of the Flight 801 passengers waited at the Seoul airport for official word of their fate. Some collapsed in grief when they learned that their loved ones had been killed. Many criticized Korean Air for being slow with information. As the U.S. government air crash investigation so-called GO team flew to Guam, some of the crucial evidence recovered from the crash site was flown to Washington for analysis. CBS News aviation correspondent Bob Orr has the latest on that.
The black boxes, which may hold critical clues to the crash of Korean Air Flight 801, arrived late today at the NTSB laboratory in Washington. Experts will listen to the cockpit voice tape and analyze the flight data. But sources say investigators are already zeroing in on the actions of the pilots. Pictures from the crash scene and testimony from survivors, many of whom were badly burned, indicate the jumbo jet was not out of control when it slammed belly first into a wooded hillside.
The landing procedure was cleared, landing gear down, flap down. So to that moment, all flight was normal. But to the last moment, we don't know what happened.
By all accounts, Flight 801 was perfectly aligned for a landing on runway 6. But for some reason, the plane was dangerously low, several hundred feet below the prescribed approach path to Guam International Airport. Witnesses say the 747 clipped some trees, tumbled, and broke apart in flames. Ironically, the wreckage came to rest next to a navigational beacon, less than 3 miles from the runway. The accident happened in heavy rain, and a critical part of the airport's instrument landing system was not working. But those factors alone should not have brought down the plane.
The pilot should be able to handle the approach relatively normally. And obviously a normal approach is not what happened. So the possibility of pilot error certainly comes up.
For Korean Air, the crash is the latest in a series of troubling accidents, and is strikingly similar to this one 8 years ago in Libya, when KAL pilots crashed their DC-10 in bad weather short of the runway. And 3 years ago in South Korea, this plane crash landed after the pilots got into an argument. David Stempler tracks air safety.
History is just replete with both fatal and non-fatal accidents, and it tells me it's an airline that I definitely wouldn't fly on.
We have laid word tonight that the black boxes are, quote, in extremely good shape, and investigators are very optimistic that they will provide good data. Now, we're told the experts have just begun opening the boxes. However, we don't expect to get even preliminary information about what might be on them until sometime later tomorrow. Dan?
Bob Orr, thanks. And editor's note now, the final cause of this crash is yet to be determined. But if it does turn out the plane somehow ran into the ground short of the runway, it would be another case of the most common type of commercial airline crash known as controlled flight into terrain. Most such accidents occur at night or in bad weather, and the crew is unaware of impending disaster until it's too late. Later on this broadcast, you will see and hear the personal impact of the Korean Air crash. Also tonight, drug abuse. Who's using drugs less and who's doing it more? What's in the documents the tobacco industry didn't want you to see? And the UPS strike. Trouble on the picket line today, but new informal talks tomorrow.
Excuse me, is that your Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah, it is.
Nice tie. Would you step away from the car, please? I was behind you back there, and you were going really slow.
Slow?
Look, I'm going to have to write you up, driving a luxury car without enough horsepower.
Seville STS with a 300 horsepower Northstar system. More horsepower than any car in its class.
Oh, you some kind of cop?
Something like that.
You are what you eat. You are also what you feel. What you think. What you do. You are what you say and what you hear.
Oh, Mom!
What you give and what you take. Take Nature Made vitamins because everything in life helps make you what you are. Nature Made, recommended by pharmacists, made for a lifetime.
Heartburn at this hour is a nightmare, but the minute I take Maalox, I know help is on the way.
1 minute Maalox. Clinical studies prove Maalox starts to work on stomach acid in about 1 minute, while Pepsid AC could take over 45 minutes. So count on 1 minute Maalox.
My shoulder.
Payer, powerful pain relief, and so much more.
The United Parcel Service and the Teamsters Union say they will resume contract talks tomorrow. This is the first even possible movement in the three-day-old strike. Things got ugly on some picket lines today. 11 people were arrested for blocking the entrance to a UPS facility in Massachusetts. Meantime, union leaders held a feisty rally in Chicago.
They want to take away good, decent jobs and shift them to part-time. They want to continue to subcontract. They want to continue to take away good, decent jobs that working Americans need and should demand.
Tomorrow night, in CBS's Eye on America report on this broadcast, economics correspondent Ray Brady will look at the argument over part-time workers that is at the very heart of this UPS strike. President Clinton said today he will not intervene in the strike because it hasn't caused, quote, severe damage to the country. Business leaders disagree. Retailers say $50 billion worth of sales rely on UPS deliveries, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce warns of large-scale layoffs. A mixed bag of results today in the U.S. government's latest nationwide survey of teens and drugs. Overall, the use of illegal drugs by teens is down slightly, but still higher than in 1992. Also down, alcohol use, but the survey indicates more teens tried heroin for the first time last year than ever before. That's a startling statistic, so we sent CBS News correspondent John Roberts out to look into why heroin use is on the rise. John, why?
Dan, among many teens, heroin use has almost become a trend. They sometimes start out with marijuana, then search for a bigger high, and they don't think they'll become addicted. We talked with 3 young people today who demonstrate that thinking is just dead wrong.
I would do anything to get heroin because that's how much I needed it. I would need it to have a normal day.
Ramsey Techley, Aaron Reese, and Tony Camano know personally how big this problem is among teens. They have spent months at Daytop Village in New Jersey in treatment for heroin addiction.
Well, I started when I was 14, and then by the time I got to 15, it just really screwed me up. I didn't have any relationship with my family. I was lying to them every day on a constant basis. I was stealing money from them every day.
3 kids from suburban towns who say they started on heroin because they were bored and their friends were doing it.
People don't go bowling or play pool anymore. They go out and get high.
My life was just getting drugs and doing drugs, and everything just started to crumble. I stopped going to school. I eventually dropped out. Like, my whole life revolved around the drug, and I needed it, like, physically to survive.
Joe Hennon, who runs the Daytop program, says these 3 boys are just the tip of the iceberg.
3 years ago, if a kid came in using heroin, the entire staff said, heroin, heroin, that's surprising. Now, 40% of our population are heroin users.
Why is heroin use up?
Because it's just easier and cheaper. I mean, no one sits there and says, I want to be a junkie, you know? No one says, I want to be a heroin addict, you know? Nobody aspires to be a heroin addict.
Those boys we spoke to this afternoon say they consider themselves lucky. They got out before heroin destroyed their lives. Dan?
Thanks, John. More of the long-held secret files of the tobacco companies came spilling out today. Among the revelations in the just-disclosed cigarette papers, some of the secret strategies the industry talked about years ago are still in use today. Case in point, an old, undated report by lawyers for R.J. Reynolds. It notes that in fighting lawsuits alleging health damage from cigarettes, quote, every effort must be made to convince the jury that the plaintiff was aware of the risk, chose to smoke, and would have smoked even if he had known the specific ingredients, unquote.
Get back to self-expression. Get back to fashion.
Get back in gear. Get back to school with Sears.
Get back to the information highway.
Get back to kids' Levi's jeans. They're all on sale through Saturday. And earn extra savings with Sears Kid Vantage Club.
Get back to nature. Get back in the swing.
All kids Levi's jeans. All on sale till Saturday at Sears.
Get back on track.
You know, AT&T wants to make things simple.
Yeah, but what about all these other long-distance offers?
Well,
ones that save 30%, another save 39%, but compared to what?
I understand.
I'm confused.
Well, AT&T can make it simple.
Hey, I called AT&T at that 1-800-COMPARE. And I found out that I wouldn't say big over what AT&T's got.
There you go.
It's that simple?
Pure and simple.
What do you mean by pure?
Nothing.
You lost me on the pure.
Forget pure.
So why'd you say pure?
Forget about pure. I think they do it to hurt me.
Simple, competitive prices for home or business.
For everyone. Oh, none for me, thanks. Why? Dairy foods do a number on my stomach. You lactose intolerant?
Huh? You know, gas, bloating. I get it too, but it's no problem anymore. Try this.
Lactaid Ultra. One little caplet just before eating lets you digest dairy foods easily and naturally.
Next time, let's go for milkshake. With a little Lactaid Ultra on the side.
Lactaid Ultra. Go on, enjoy dairy again. For real milk that's easier to digest, try Lactaid Milk.
An automated highway where the cars drive themselves? Look at this guy reading the paper and doing 65. What's going on here? Plus your latest weather tomorrow on This Morning.
At a wide-ranging White House news conference today, President Clinton again talked up the economy. He said the budget deficit this year will be a lower than expected $37 billion, the lowest in 23 years. The president also confirmed he does expect to make first ever use of the line item veto. That's the president's new power to delete individual items from spending bills. He says he may kill some tax breaks to special interests in the big new budget deal. He gave no examples. And the president bristled when asked about campaign funding reform. He cut off the questioner in mid-sentence.
You've called for an end to soft money. You continue to raise it for your party.
I certainly do, and I'm proud of it.
Well, let me ask you
I
about...
do. I plead guilty to that. I don't believe in unilateral disarmament. We live in a competitive world. And notwithstanding what the image may be, constantly, and you see again in the press today, the Republicans raise more money, raise more big money, and raise more money from non-citizens than the Democrats do. But we have to raise enough to be competitive.
Joining us now, CBS News White House correspondent Bill Plant. Bill, although the president was irritated by the question, was his response part of a planned strategy?
Dan, you bet. That was no accident. The president was asked why his party doesn't just stop taking soft money, the big dollar unregulated contributions, and for Mr. Clinton, that was simply a case of the best defense being a good offense. The investigations into campaign finance abuses continue, but so does the money need of the Democratic Party. They're still trying to talk about money from the last election that may have been raised illegally, giving it back, but they were so broke that they had to go out and raise more to do that. And as for reforming the campaign finance laws, the president said today that it's critical and that it has his strong support. But that's not going to do it. He would have to be a whole lot tougher than that with members of this Congress to get them to give up the money advantage that they now have. Dan?
Thanks, Bill. A surprising truce was announced today between arch computer rivals Apple and Microsoft. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs said Microsoft will buy $150 million of Apple stock. The two companies will also develop common software. Analysts say this move could help get Apple out from under its mounting losses. But customers at an Apple Computer Expo were furious to see Microsoft's Bill Gates enter their domain.
Good morning.
Taking the booze. As part of the deal, Apple will drop long-standing allegations that Microsoft stole its successful Windows operating system from Apple.
Think about it. The minty mouthwash that tastes a little too medicine-y can leave your breath smelling a little too medicine-y.
Getting together later?
Yeah. Antiseptic man.
Who wants a minty mouthwash that smells so medicine-y? Get kissably close with Scope. The tingle tells you it kills bad breath germs. As many as the leading medicine-y mouthwash. The minty taste tells you how minty fresh your breath can be. Get kissably close with Scope.
Life's an adventure because you're over 50 and still exploring. So take the Centrum made just for you, Centrum Silver, with age-essential nutrients specially adjusted to keep pace with your changing nutritional needs. Centrum Silver, it's a great time to be silver.
Got a cup? Okay.
your coffee made? So many choices. It's your cup, it's your call. So rich, so creamy. It takes your coffee from ordinary to extraordinary. Your cup, your coffee made.
My Uncle Lewis, he can fix just about anything you bring in the door. The man loves to tinker, but his arthritis gives him some pain. Tried extra strength Tylenol. Hours later, hurts back, took more, got tired of it. Doctor said try a leave.
Leave is strong. Just 2 and I'm good all day. I was taking 4 Advil or 8 Tylenol.
Tries a leave. Pain's gone up to 12 hours.
Told you works.
Aleve. All day strong, all day long.
There's so many things to worry about. Getting a great car shouldn't be one of them.
It's the Chevy Big Value, Big Savings event. And you can get 2.9 APR financing or cash back on the roomy Chevy Lumina. Lumina has more standard safety features for the money than any other 6-passenger car in its class. There's great offers on other outstanding cars and trucks, too.
Saving money has never been so simple and worry-free.
There'll never be a better time to get a 97 Chevy than during the Chevy Big Value, Big Savings event. It's big.
Is she a loving mother? Or did she deliberately make her own daughter sick? Inside a family torn apart. 48 Hours, Thursday.
Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones imposed a $75,000 fine today on head coach Barry Switzer. This was after Switzer's arrest for having a loaded gun in his carry-on luggage at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. The police have not yet said what, if anything, they are going to do. The Chicago police say they've confirmed evidence linking suspected spree killer Andrew Cunanan to the murder of real estate developer Lee Miglin. The police say fingerprints found at the murder scene match Cunanan's. We have more on the Cunanan investigation from CBS News correspondent Jim Axelrod in Miami Beach.
2 weeks after Andrew Cunanan's murder spree ended with his suicide, investigators now say they're in the final phases of their case.
We're on the last chapter, and perhaps we'll find an accomplice in that chapter, and perhaps not.
Evidence seized from the houseboat where Cunanan hid may be investigators' last chance to link Cunanan with an accomplice. For instance, a prepaid phone card and business cards. Perhaps they'll lead to people Cunanan begged for help.
Well, if we can find anything that would indicate his contact with persons outside of that houseboat, then that would certainly be helpful, yes.
But to this point, nothing so far.
Well, the investigation continues.
Other evidence from the houseboat provides a picture of Cunanan in his last few days, nibbling on cheddar cheese crackers, drinking Perrier water, wrapped in bloody gauze pads and bandages, and taking penicillin. Sources close to the investigation tell CBS News Cunanan was wounded in early May, possibly in New Jersey during the murder of cemetery caretaker William Reese, Cunanan's 4th suspected victim. Do you get the sense that perhaps there will be more arrests in this case?
I have no indication of that right now, but there's certainly some mysteries in our minds that we want to try to delve into.
One mystery solved is the connection between Cunanan and Torsten Reineck, the last known owner of the houseboat. FBI sources tell us they've finished interviewing him and do not consider him an accomplice. At this point, they say, they don't know where he is, and they don't care. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Miami.
There's information tonight about a scientific advance that could help prevent stomach ulcers. Researchers have created a genetic blueprint of the bacterium that causes stomach ulcers, and it's hoped this could one day be used to create a vaccine. It turns out one of the 2 relief and emergency repair cosmonauts launched by Russia to Space Station Mir may have some problems of his own. The top doctor at Mir's Mission Control said today the cosmonaut, and I quote, was overcome with emotions during and after yesterday's rocket launch. The doctor didn't say exactly what that meant, but did say the relief cosmonaut is just fine now.
Come, take a seat at our table. It's the Olive Garden's new chicken scampi. Sautéed chicken covered with a rich garlicky sauce that is just a hint of wine. With all the salad and breadsticks you'd like. Just $8.95 at the Olive Garden.
Why all these laxatives?
Why not?
They have ingredients that may cause cramps.
Says who?
Says on the label. Phillips is the only one that doesn't. Don't you know nothing's better?
He knows now.
Phillips Effective Relief without harsh ingredients.
So, this is where you made that famous 80-yard run, huh?
I guess I told you about that one.
Yeah, once or twice. Hey, come on. You're still in great shape. You stay healthy.
Well, Coach, good nutrition helps me stay healthy.
As an occasional meal or snack, Ensure is a source of complete balanced nutrition to help you stay healthy, active, energetic.
So, can you run 80 yards like you used to?
Maybe better.
Ensure, the #1 doctor-recommended supplement. Drink to your health.
No, I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
Buick LeSabre is built to keep you safe and secure. A comforting thought, especially for those who aren't even in the car.
Stand by me.
Make short work of your work with Corel WordPerfect Suite 8. Loaded with amazing integrated features like the property bar, a powerful toolbar that changes depending on the job. The shadow cursor. Start typing anywhere. Your words will stay put. And industry standards like Corel Quattro Pro, supercharged with even more lightning-fast spreadsheet features. Corel WordPerfect Suite 8. Office Suite Excellence.
From Los Angeles tonight, a different perspective on the tragedy in the far Pacific island of Guam. Through all the searing images of twisted metal, burning debris, nameless corpses covered with sheets, it's hard to put a face on such tragedy. So many lives lost, so many more torn apart in an instant, so many dreams gone. Bill Whitaker tonight looks at the human toll this tragedy has taken on one family.
When Korean Air Flight 801 went down in Guam, Mina Park and her sister Kelly Kang, Korean Americans living in Los Angeles, had 11 relatives on board. 10 of them lived in Korea. One was Kang's only child, 8-year-old Tiffany. The daughter Kang calls her reason for living. She still hasn't been accounted for.
She's my everything. I better die instead of her.
Tiffany, a budding artist and A student, went by herself from Los Angeles to visit her relatives in Korea this summer. They were taking her for a week on the beach in Guam. The sisters have heard from friends in Korea that 2 of her relatives in the same row with Tiffany died in the crash. But they have heard nothing at all about the others, nothing at all from the airline.
So we're waiting for the rest of night now.
So they prayed, and friends worked the phones into the night. This is a pain this family knows only too well. 14 years ago, Mina Park's husband was killed in another Korean Airlines tragedy.
My husband was flight 007 in Korean Air. It's been shut down by missile by Russia.
After Flight 007 was shot out of the sky by the Soviets, the sisters thought they had suffered enough for a lifetime. Now this. Kang, herself a former Korean Air flight attendant, can't understand why the airline is taking so long to release names.
Yeah, I want to see my kid. I want to see my Tiffany.
So today, the sisters left Los Angeles for Guam to search for Tiffany, to search for answers, hoping that somehow their loved ones, at least some of them, survived. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's part of our world tonight. For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Good night.
CBS News. Is the siding on your home looking a little grimy and gritty? Paul Moriarty tests a product that promises professionally clean siding at a fraction of the cost. Is your house ready for the Wonder Wash? Can you believe it? Tonight at 11 on KYW News 3.
They kept leaking. One would get bigger, one would get smaller. It's like a pile of rocks with a bunch of foam on top.
They trusted a plastic surgeon to make their dreams come true. Next, Sally.
Tomorrow at 4 on KYW 3.
Patience is a virtue. Stop and smell the roses.
Hey, but Oldsmobile's National Year-End Closeout is right now. You can pick up a well-equipped 88 with 6-passenger seating and a long list of standard features for only $23,200.
Good things come to those who wait.
Wait and miss out on an additional $1,500 cash back or 2.9 financing?
Oh, never mind. The early bird gets the worm.
Right, at Oldsmobile's National Year-End Closeout.
Skycam 3, coverage you can count on.